Good morning, everyone. So, I have read Matthew 14 before, but this time there was just so many things that have stuck out to me. And I think that's how it should be. We should, every time we read God's word, we should glean something different, or it should open our eyes differently each time because it's so full. And when I sat down here to do my morning devotion, I asked the Lord, I said, speak to me through your word. I want to hear from you. And so in Matthew 14, there's just so many things that are going on in there. But what stood out to me, one, was that this was when John was beheaded, and the disciples had went and buried John, and then they went to go find Jesus. And Jesus said that he was gonna go and have some time to himself and pray. But being the celebrity that Jesus is, the crowd started following him, and everybody wanted to be healed. And so Jesus took time to heal everybody. And then the disciples say, it's getting late. We need to send these people home because otherwise, we're going to have to feed them supper. And Jesus said, we don't need to send them home. We can feed them. And the disciples say, but we only have 2 fish and 5 loaves. And he goes, well, bring it to me. Jesus says, well, bring it to me. And he feeds 5,000 men. And that's not to mention women and children. So the first thing that speaks to me in this is, one, the disciples just buried a dear friend, a brother. 2, they're mourning. And I never even thought about that they're in a grief process. They literally that day buried their brother. Jesus, I'm sure, as in human form he was, felt grief from the fact that John was just beheaded, which is probably why he wanted to go and pray by himself. So the first time I were in reading this in the past, I thought, man, them disciples was being selfish. Like, they were trying to send these people home. They like, let's go, let's get out of here. But they were actually grieving. And I'm sure they were sad and full of a lot of emotion. And I'm sure Jesus was sad. And so it kind of made me think, in my life, there's a lot of things that happen. There's a lot of things that make me sad. Grieving of my dad who passed away 4 years ago, it doesn't get easy. I mean, it gets easier, but the feeling, still remains. It's a pain. And in the midst of the burdens of life and ministry and whatever it is that you're doing, like, we still have to keep going. We still have to press through. And that's what Jesus did. Even though he may have been sad that John passed away, even though he knows like all things and is omnipresent, he still put aside what he was trying to do to help others and to heal people. And that's what I want to be like. I want to be like Jesus in that way. And then the chapter goes on to talk about, how they were out on the boat, and Peter, they saw Jesus. He was done praying. He came down from praying, And he was like, okay, I'm going to go meet the boys and I'm going to go walk through the water, walk on water to get to the boat, and they thought Jesus was a ghost. And Jesus tells them to be still. It is I. You have nothing to fear. And so, first of all, back when I read it a few times before, I'm like, why are they afraid? Like, they don't know Jesus? They can't see him? But then, same thing, going back to, they just buried a friend. They weren't, if anybody has lost anybody, you know that sometimes the grief and the pain and the hurt, the stress is just out of control. And you don't know sometimes what day it is. So I'm putting myself in their shoes and thinking like, man, okay. But despite that, there was that one Peter that says, he wanted to come out there and he says, Lord, command me. If it's you, command me to do this. And he loses his focus and he falls. And oftentimes we do the same thing. A lot of the times we do the same thing. We want to fully trust in Jesus through the circumstances that we're faced with. But there's those times when we don't put our full focus on God and we allow our circumstances to drown us. And our circumstances become louder than our faith and our trust in God. So I just want to encourage you, whoever might be watching this, don't let your circumstances control your emotions, your faith and trust in God. Keep your eyes focused on Him. When you lose focus is when you drown. Have a blessed day.